Thank you for joining us. This certainly is an unprecedented time in history with three life-changing disasters, one after the other. First, the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, then the economic crisis it caused. And now, on top of all of this, we see protests and riots ignited by the atrocious murder of George Floyd. My friend Dr. Alveda King reminded us of the words of her uncle Martin Luther King, who said, "We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools." There's so much pandering going on and lies by omission, yet some people who have the courage to say what they really think. This is a time in which we should stand together to address and solve health, economic and social emergencies. And today we'll talk about these concerns and also about rising anti-Semitism. Our guests are Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, and Bill Faloon, the co-founder of Life Extension, who will share their thoughts on these subjects following these messages.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Life Extension magazine brings you new discoveries in health and anti-aging. Our science-based research and supplements are so advanced they're many years ahead of the medical mainstream, with quality control standards that exceed FDA mandates. Life Extension has covered groundbreaking medical research for more than 35 years. For your health and future, you deserve the best. Learn more at lifeextension.com.
Joining us now is Bernie Marcus and Bill Faloon. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you back on the show, Bernie. It's been, good Lord, decades.
Well, you talked to me about 30 years ago, and I don't remember that program 30 years ago, so you'll refresh my memory. As you said, you're going to send it to me, so it'll be very interesting.
And this is wonderful, but what a strange time in history. We are recording from our homes because we are keeping safe distances, and it's such a strange situation. What a very, very odd year 2020 is. What are your thoughts with regard to the new challenges facing humanity in general, and from your perspective, Bernie?
Well, I think that the world has changed dramatically. I'm 91 years old today, and I've lived through wars, I lived through a lot of things, but I have to tell you, living through the coronavirus now, and then living through the marches and the violence that I've seen in the last couple of weeks, this is not a good time for America. And we have to be concerned about this country and concerned about the directions it's going into. And it's very worrisome when people start looking at violence, at, breaking down windows and killing cops. And they say, well, this is a small amount of violence. I happen to hear a member of their House representative today. She said, well, there was a small amount of violence. Well, for those people that don't have a livelihood anymore, people that don't have a place to shop for groceries anymore, people who have lost their life savings, it's not a little violence, it's a really serious stuff. And when I hear about trying to disband and defund the police, when in fact that's what is the security that we have in our country, we should be worried. We should be worried. And if we're not worried, we're pretty stupid.
Bill, what are your thoughts on this?
These are frightening times, Bernie, but some good news. The Wall Street Journal reported on June 8th, 2020, some good news about the coronavirus, and that is some therapies that are being employed right now in ICUs. And our Life Extension group identified these in early March. These are repurposed drugs, meaning medications approved for other uses. They're using them on COVID-19 disease patients, and they're seeing some remarkable improvements in survival. Markedly fewer people dying in ICUs than there were when this started at the end of February, beginning of March, when the doctors just didn't know what to do. They were treating it like regular pneumonia and not realizing there were off-purpose drugs that could have been used but weren't used initially. And there may be 50,000 or more COVID patients who died needlessly because the doctors just didn't know to use some of the off-purpose drugs that are out there, like Actemra, like low molecular weight heparin to prevent coagulation. The Actemra is an anti-IL-6 drug. It reduces the severity of those cytokine storms. So at least on the COVID-19 front, they're making some real progress. And we at Life Extension appreciate applying science to the clinical practice of medicine. It isn't done enough in this country. And here you're a beneficiary of a person who's had a chronic problem that wasn't addressed in the United States, and you had to go all the way to Panama to get treatment.
Well, we hope that that will stop shortly, and I'll tell you why, because we're doing a lot of clinical trials. I'm talking about Marcus Foundation. I just got off the phone this morning with the people that work for me in my area of the foundation. That's medical research using vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is something that's very, very, very available. It's something that has been around for 100 years. The side effects are very slight. We're doing a clinical trial with Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia to show that it's effective with the coronavirus. Also, a lot of hospitals have been using it, and we're talking about infusing high doses of vitamin C, and that's proven to be very successful. In addition to that, let me just say that we're also doing a clinical trial using stem cells, which I go to Panama to use. And it's not available in the United States for my condition. The FDA hasn't allowed it yet, but I think that eventually it's going to happen because these clinical trials demonstrate the fact that it's not detrimental to people, that people could use it without having to worry about the side effects. The side effects are very small. Well, I've been using it for 10 years. It's kind of saved me from a condition that I have. But you're right. It's amazing that we have restrictions on some things that shouldn't be restricted. And vitamin C for some of these issues is easier because it's on a market. It's a vitamin, and therefore for use you don't even need the FDA, but you have to have it if you want to prove that it works on COVID. And so I think a lot of things are happening that are good. The things that worry me are outside of the medical industry. It's what's happening on the outside.
My compliments, by the way, Bernie, to you identifying intravenous vitamin C. Our Life Extension group has advocated that since 1978, 1979, just for general health purposes. I sometimes go in and get a vitamin C infusion with some glutathione. It's amazing. You walk out and you just feel better. And it's a way to reduce your risk of contracting infectious illnesses. It boosts immune function. So my compliments for you funding that clinical study. I suspect you're going to see some interesting positive findings from that. And as it relates to the stem cell therapies, we're working with companies in the United States who are getting investigational new drug approvals to utilize different types of stem cell therapies to treat COVID also. So I think we're all on the same track. And the good news about these stem cells is they turn down the cytokine storm, that hyper-inflammatory condition that's probably doing more organ damage to COVID patients than the virus itself. So both of those studies that you're funding are identical literally to what our Life Extension group is also pursuing, and adding, of course, other medications where we can to try to save as many of these COVID patients as possible.
Let's hope it works. We'll keep our fingers crossed. because between what you're doing and what we're doing, maybe we'll find something to take away the terrible threat to people that if they get the COVID, what happens to them? They get into a hospital. What kind of treatment do they have? And the more that we get before there's a vaccine, which I hope comes on the market before the end of the year, we hope there's so much work being done in this area. And before we have a really good test for it, and there is no really good test today. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. The false positives are very misleading to people. And so we think that things are going to get better in this area also. Emory just got a grant of $31 million from the NIH to study this example exactly, to come up with those tests that are more effective, that will help more people and be available to more people.
Bernie, that is fantastic news for the audience to hear. Now, our concern with vaccines is that older people don't always produce antibodies in response to a vaccine. Of course, we'll know after we inoculate older people with the vaccine if they really are producing sufficient antibodies and sufficient quality antibodies. But what we're looking to do at Life Extension is research, and we've been doing that for the last 5 years, to reverse immune senescence. That's the decline in immune function that happens in people over the age of 50 or 60. I'm 65 years of age, by the way, and I have a lot of immune senescence that I have to aggressively treat with off-purpose drugs. And I think what you're advocating, mixed with the work we're doing to reverse the decline in immune function that occurs in older people, is going to be the ultimate solution. So great work on the vaccine front, and hopefully the work we're doing to restore immune competence is going to enable older people to be literally immunized against COVID and a whole lot of other chronic problems.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Bernie, you are involved in so many initiatives, and you are involved with philanthropies in Israel and elsewhere worldwide. And speaking of Israel, Pluristem in Israel is doing stem cell research with regard to cures, hopefully, for the coronavirus. And in fact, you will receive tomorrow a high-tech mask engineered in Israel, nanotechnology. In fact, here is one of them. You'll get it tomorrow. Leslie is sending it to you. It is something of interest that kills all viruses on contact. Anyway, many innovations, and you fund all sorts of important causes. Please share with us some of the causes you're involved with.
Look, first of all, we have to say Home Depot was a great success in America today. And all of you, I hope everybody's a shopper at the Home Depot. I hope that's where they go for their home improvement. And I hope, because a lot of the money that they spend comes back in what my foundation gives out. We work off the foundation, off a Home Depot stock, and the stock has reached a very significant number today. That means I can be involved with more things, helping people. Our foundation is based on principles. Number one, children helping children. The free enterprise. I'm very concerned about the free enterprise because I'm a product of the free enterprise system. Medical research, as we talked about, and children. And I think the last one is, but I have to add it, it's part of the free enterprise, but it's helping the young men and women who served in the United States Army and Navy and Marine Corps, who have come out of this war with an illness that nobody's been able to address well, which is post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And we are setting up hospitals around the United States to take care of these young people. By the end of this year, we'll have 5 hospitals that are set up. We also have special camps with 8-day programs for them to be taken care of. And also, we have in Atlanta the Operation Share, which is a facility for very, very, very difficult cases to handle, where these people are on the verge of committing suicide, and we're trying to save their lives. And by the way, between 20 to 22 people a day, every single day are committing suicide in the United States because of post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. I know the virus is taking a lot, but this has been going on for years. And if you add up how many kids are dying every year that went out to serve the United States government and come back as wounded warriors, and what they get for it is a lack of treatment. So we're setting up hospitals, and we have other philanthropists who have joined us. My partner, Arthur Blank, has joined us in this effort, and we're trying to open more hospitals around the United States to take care of them free of charge. No charge whatsoever to these people. In addition to that, these hospitals also dedicated to not only taking care of these young people, but also half of the program is for local people. They're doctors and nurses who are stressed out. There are policemen who are on the verge of committing suicide. There are people in the emergency services that also need a lot of help. Kids playing football, basketball, who have concussions, traumatic brain injury, have no place to go. These hospitals are equipped to take care of them as well. So this is going to be a very critical thing. Number one, to take care of our young people, young men and women. And the second part of it is take care of other people who have traumatic brain injury, who don't even realize they have it in many cases. So that's one of the things that we're doing. But Israel is a special cause for us, and Jewish people as well.
Changing subjects. Bernie, you have personally seen the history of anti-Semitism in the United States up to the present time with BDS and other shameless hypocrisy.
We're very concerned about anti-Semitism in the United States. It's reared its ugly head. Anti-Israel, as you know, the president has passed a resolution, basically executive order, saying that anti-Israel is anti-Semitic, because it is the same kind of voice, the same voices are anti-Semitic who are anti-Israel. And so we have to be very careful about that, and we have to fight it. We have to fight it, and the Jews have to do it. Our foundation, myself personally, I'm out there. I'm not afraid of these people. I'm proud of the fact that I'm Jewish. I'm proud of the fact of having a Yiddish cup, which I was born with genetically. And I have the success that I've had is really the basis of the free enterprise system. It's the capitalist system. My parents were Russian immigrants, and we had no money. I grew up in a 4-story tenement. We walked up 4 stairs. We had 1 bathroom. We're lucky we had a stove in the kitchen, and we were poor. I mean, I am talking about poor. And for me to get where I am today, it was the system that we have in the United States that allowed it to happen. Couldn't have happened in Russia. Couldn't happen anywhere else in the world. But believe me when I tell you that in this country we have case after case, people after people who have been successful, who never could have had it except for the capitalist system. And the capitalist system right now is under attack from all sides. And we have politicians who are not ashamed to be out there talking about socialism, which my parents ran away from. That's what they didn't want to be part of. And they came here to this country for the opportunity to be who you want to be and create what you want to create. And I worry about the American people, and I worry about the Jewish people who support this nonsense. You should be concerned about it. Jews out there should be concerned about this. We don't want socialism here. I don't want to have to do what the government tells me to do. I don't want to be forced to read what I want, what people want me to read, or listen to the things that they want me to hear and not those things I want to hear. That's called freedom of speech, and it's under attack today, every single day. And you see people having to resign, quitting jobs because they said something that wasn't politically correct. That's what we have in America today. Scary. And Jewish people are supporting that. This is so dumb for Jews. I cannot believe it.
What you said was so on point, and I appreciate that so much.
Bernie, you know, there's something known as lying by omission, telling half-truths. I'm astonished by how the media misrepresents, tells half the truth, takes things out of context, edits people's comments so that it has a different meaning. This is very, very dangerous and incredibly dishonest. What are your thoughts with regard to the lies by omission perpetrated against the public?
It's on a constant basis. Well, you know, there are publications out there like the New York Times, like CNN, ABC, NBC, I mean, all the major networks. There's a group, a cabal, that's actually trying to direct conversation and direct what they think is right and will omit anything that they think is disagreeable to them. That's the other side. In other words, rather than giving both sides of the fence, which is what I grew up with. I mean, discourse, having discourse. And Jewish people, this is what we do. We discuss, we sit around a table, we argue. You know what Jews are. We argue. Everybody's got a different point. But the point is that we always listen to each other and we allowed each other to speak. And sometimes in that speaking, we learn things which we didn't do before. But this group of people that we have out there today, if you don't agree with them, you're not going to be heard. They're going to stifle you and stop you from saying what you want to say. We are slowly but surely seeing liberty walk away in the United States, and Jews have to be in the forefront of stopping this. Jews have to be the one that say, we don't want this, because ultimately the first casualty of this are Jews.
Bernie, that is so, again, eloquently stated. Let me bring up a lethal consequence of the suppression of the First Amendment and the over-regulatory problem that we have in this country. There's a prescription drug called metformin, prescribed to treat type 2 diabetes. It has other properties like slowing down aging and reducing cancer risk. Our Life Extension group has been proponents of metformin since 1995. Study came out last year, and it looked at the number of Americans who have been saved since metformin was approved. And it's a huge number, many, many millions of Americans. But the delay in approving metformin, it was a 37-year delay, resulted in over 4 million Americans needlessly dying from cardiovascular diseases because they couldn't get their hands on the drug metformin. It was approved in England in 1957, Europe in the 1960s, 1970s, didn't get approved in the US till 1995. And we had to battle the FDA to get that drug approved. And it's now widely prescribed, of course, because there's so many type 2 diabetics out there. But that is actually the first drug that we recommend people take who want to slow or reverse biological aging in their own bodies. It's a low-cost generic. If people have a prescription, they can get it for free at the local supermarket, and it will help people hopefully survive some of the degenerative processes associated with aging. So everything you're talking about, it fits into what our Life Extension group is doing to break down regulatory barriers that are precluding people from gaining access to effective therapies like you were able to get in Panama.
Oh, you know what we did with this drug? You know what we did with the stem cell treatment? I'm not sure you know about it. I've been involved with autistic children for 40 years. The Marcus Autism Center in Atlanta treats autistic kids by a multiple of 8 over any other institution in the world. So you can imagine the kind of effect we've had on autistic kids. But in Panama, we did an experiment. And we started using stem cells on autistic kids. Surprise, it had a big effect on them. Well, Duke University has now done 2 clinical trials. They're in the 3rd using it on autistic kids. Papers have been written on it. It changes their life. And the FDA has now given approval to try it at earlier ages. In other words, the FDA is slowly but surely coming in. Why I have to go to Panama to get stem cells, the same cells they're giving these kids, doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, does it? But more importantly, let me go back to what you said. There's political correctness in drugs as well. In other words, there are drugs that they have decided are not going to help you. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, they're not going to let you bring it to market. And they're going to influence the FDA for you not to bring it to market. And that's a battle that we have to have. And you talk about overregulation, that's part of the overregulation. But somewhere along the line, I think it's happened now, We've never seen the FDA react the way it has now. Trump has caused this to happen. He's now said, I want to see action. I want to see things on a market that you never would have approved before, and I want to see it quickly. And we're seeing these things happening in COVID, especially, where the FDA is approving it at levels we've never seen before. You've never seen this before, where in a matter of a weeks or a months, the FDA is now approving something that normally they would look at for 10 years, or it would take forever to get done. So I think that one of the only good things that are coming out of COVID, the only good thing, is that the FDA has now changed the way they look at products, the way they look at treatments, and maybe it has taught them that, you know what, if you save 10 million lives and you lose 2, those odds are pretty good. Those odds are good. It makes sense to me. And we have to see more of that, and I think you will see more of it. I'm happy about what Trump did on deregulation in this area, especially in the FDA.
It certainly has helped significantly, and I think the COVID crisis, yes, has spurred doctors even to realize there are drugs in a hospital formulary that they can legally use as repurposed medications and get tremendous clinical outcomes. And the FDA themselves, of course, are just saying, we're not going to stand in the way because it's now politically incorrect to deny a COVID patient an experimental therapy because their rates of morbidity and mortality so high. And as you know, the COVID patients who recover, some of them have lifelong organ damage, heart failure, scarred lungs, kidney dialysis retreatments. They're unfortunately in pretty bad shape, some of the severe ones that even get better. So it's critical that these repurposed medications be more widely utilized. And the good news is they are. It just depends on what hospital you go in, though. It's illegal for the drug makers to promote these drugs for COVID disease, but the doctors are legally allowed to use them off purpose. And what our Life Extension group does is we have a special website that doctors can go to and read about repurposed medications. We don't sell any of these, by the way, but we can legally inform frontline doctors on how to use these medications without us getting in trouble or the drug company getting into trouble. So yes, we are making incredible progress, but more needs to be done.
We'll try to get a hold of your life extension. You ought to send something to me, okay? I'd like to see your publications.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Look forward to meeting you.
Yes, please.
Mel, take care.
I want to thank you both very, very much for being with us today. This concludes part 1 of our conversation with Bernie Marcus and Bill Faloon, and we'll continue with our second half in our broadcast next week. Meanwhile, wishing you all the very best. Thank you for being with us.